Welcome to this week's video. It's a tutorial, so we're going to be painting this gorgeous painting. If you haven't done so already, then please subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate it. So let's begin. Okay, let's begin our painting. Now, I'm using canvas paper for the purpose of this demonstration. I've actually done this painting on a large canvas, but I didn't film the underpainting, so I'm just doing this on canvas paper. You can use canvas paper or you can use a canvas, whichever you feel comfortable with. Now, as you can see, I've done a vague outline of what the painting is going to look like. So here I've got the horizon line, and here I've got the outline of the railing, and then just the trees and then the hills at the back. Okay, so basically we're going to do this underpainting in Naples Yellow. So first thing you want to do is grab your spray bottle and you want to wet the canvas. Now, the underpainting is just going to be a wash, so it's okay if you let the paint drip down. If you're using a canvas, make sure you spray the back of the canvas before each session so that it makes the canvas nice and taut. Okay, so let's begin. You want to spray your paint and make sure your brush is nice and wet. You want to use a nice large brush so that you can cover the surface area quite quickly. And remember, you want the paint to run down the painting. It's just a wash, so it's okay. You never want to paint your actual painting on just a plain white canvas because it affects your perception of what the colors look like. So it's always better if you have a nice undertone wash onto your canvas and then you do your actual painting. For warmer paintings like the one we're about to do, I like to use an underpainting of Naples Yellow. For more cooler paintings, I use burnt sienna. So they just make the colors pop better and they don't distort your perception. And you might see in areas where the graphite of your pencil mixes with the paint. That's completely fine. We're going to be painting over this anyway, so it doesn't matter. Now we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to do the second layer of underpaintings. Okay, now that our first layer of underpainting is done, we're going to fill in the darks of the painting. So that will be the hills and the trees and this little bush over here. Okay, so grab a small flat brush and dip it in some burnt umber, and now we start doing our underpainting. Again, we don't want it to be blended perfectly. We just really want to mark out where the darks are going to be, really. It's okay if you accidentally go over some of the houses or even in the water or something. It's okay because it's just an underpainting. We'll be painting over this. So just carry on like this until you fill up all the darks here. Okay, for our first blend, we're going to take some Phthalo Blue, Phthalo Green and Naples Yellow. To this, you want to add just a little bit of white. For our second blend, without cleaning your palette knife, you want to take some Phthalo Blue, some Naples Yellow, and some white, and blend these together. For our third blend, get some Phthalo Green, some Naples Yellow, and some white, and blend these three together. Grab a little bit of the first blend and some titanium white and a little bit of Naples Yellow. Again, we're going lighter and lighter as we progress. For our fifth shade, without cleaning your palette knife, get some titanium white and some Naples Yellow. So this should be the lightest of all the shades. Grab a small flat brush and dip it in some water. select one of the light shades and just thinly apply it onto the canvas. It's okay if you've got so much water that it runs down the canvas. This is just another underpainting of the water. I know that so many underpaintings. Anyway, after it's dry, we're going to thickly apply the paint. So use small strokes. We want to see the texture of the paint, and this style creates an interesting effect. Use the colors in any order that you want, but make sure that the water near the shoreline is of a lighter shade. You can also vary the size of the brush, and this also adds interesting textures, interesting effects. So feel free to do whatever you want to do with this painting. After all, it is your painting. To complete our ocean, with the side edge of your palette knife, run it through the pure white titanium white paint. You should have a very thin coat of paint on and gently apply it onto the canvas. Take your time. There's no rush. Palette knives are great for creating a foamy effect or sprays of water. Get some ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and titanium white. Take a big blob of white and add it to tiny amounts of ultramarine blue and phthalo blue. You don't need much of these colors. A little paint goes a long way. We're also going to make a darker shade, so we want a slightly greater amount of ultramarine blue to phthalo blue ratio with slightly less white. For skies, I like to use a Filbert brush. In the same way we painted the ocean, we're going to paint the sky. Small, delicate brush strokes, so that you can see the brush marks, and it also adds a very interesting impressionistic effect. Some people don't really like this, but for this particular painting, the brush strokes add to the charm and the impressionistic style. To add a few highlights, just add more white to your first blend and delicately dab your brush onto the canvas. Unfortunately, here's where my camera stopped rolling when I was mixing the colors for the railing. But here we are. Take some burnt sienna and a little Naples Yellow. This will be the main color of our railing. For the bits where the light hits, we want to use a larger quantity of Naples Yellow and some white. For the darkest bit, which is, the part of the railing that touches the ground, we mix equal quantities of burnt sienna and burnt umber with only the tiniest amount of Naples Yellow. It's preferable if you draw an outline of the railing with pencil, and make sure that it looks realistic. Also, you want to make sure that the railing nicely tapers into the painting, and that creates an effect of distance. Alright, once we've finished the railing, we want to work on the hills in the background. So we take some burnt umber, phthalo green and Naples yellow. So grab a bit of the burnt umber, grab some phthalo green, and a little Naples yellow and blend them together. You should get a really nice dark shade of green here. Now, without cleaning your palette knife, grab some more green, a tiny amount of brown, and a larger quantity of Naples yellow, and blend these together. You should get a nice, slightly lighter shade of green. Finally, grab a large bit of Naples yellow and you should get a nice light shade of green. These are the three colors that we're going to use to paint our hills with. Again, in the same style as we painted the sky, using a Filbert brush, just dab bits of the paint onto the canvas. Again, if you don't want to have that impressionistic effect, then that's up to you. But personally, for this painting, I rather liked it. So now, for an even lighter shade of green, especially for the trees, grab some Sap Green and some Phthalo Green so that it's not too bright, and blend these two together. Grab some Sap Green, the tiniest amount of Phthalo Green, plenty of Naples Yellow, and just a little bit of burnt umber, and blend these together. You should end up with a nice yellowy leaf green color that will look really nice as highlights for your hills. You don't want it to be too bright because you don't want there to be too much of a contrast between what you've already painted and your new colors. So grab a little bit of burnt umber if you feel it's just too bright. Now you can start painting in your trees and that lovely great big bush that is overhanging our railing. Right, so I wasn't very happy with the colors of the bush in the front, so I went ahead and changed it. Now, if you're happy with this, you can let it be, or if you want, you can do what I did, which is I grabbed some yellow ochre and I mixed it with the sap green, and I made a slightly muted shade of green. But again, if you don't want to do this, then that's okay, because it looks fine, really. You can, however, add these colors to the trees because it helps distinguish the trees from the hills below, and that's something you want. You don't want it to be just one big mass of green. Alright, now we're going to paint the sand. So on your palette, get some titanium white, yellow, Naples yellow, yellow ochre, raw sienna, and burnt umber. So as we did with the other sections of this painting, we're going to be blending a few shades, and then we're going to be painting using these shades simultaneously. Okay, don't forget your spray bottle. Spray the paint so that they become nice and viscous, so that it's not difficult, you know, the paint is not too thick. For our first shade, grab some burnt umber, raw sienna, yellow ochre, and Naples yellow, and a little bit of white, and blend these together. Alright, I wanted a bit more white, so add some more white to it. For our next shade, get some raw sienna, yellow ochre, and Naples yellow, and some white, and start blending these together. For our third shade, get some yellow ochre, Naples yellow, titanium white, and just a little bit of raw sienna, and blend these together. Right, for this too, I used the same Filbert brush. I quite like the effect I get from this Filbert brush, so if you want, you can use a flat or use a Filbert, but it gives a very, very nice effect, and I really like it. So go ahead, use all the colors, and just make sure that the sand that's right up top, that's near the hedge, is lighter, and it progressively gets darker as you come down. Again, this is your painting. You can paint it however you want to paint it. Painting is fun, so, you know, have some fun when painting. If you want these colors to be lighter or darker, then you can vary them as you see fit. that's what I've done here, where you can see the highlights. I've added some more white to the lighter shade and I've painted them on. Right, now we're going to paint in those blocks of cement that you see attached to the railing, or that hold the railing together. So get some white and some grey. So for the parts that are in shadow, we're going to have a larger amount of grey to white. Now, what I haven't shown you in this video is that I wasn't very happy with the colors that came out, you know, because they just really look the same. So to make the grey that's in the shadow slightly darker, I used a bit of Phthalo Blue, just a tiny bit, and it really went a long way. So do that. It's not in the video, but get a little bit of Phthalo Blue and mix it to your grey, and you'll get a nice dark shade of grey. Here's a mistake that I noticed I made. The second concrete pillar I found was taller than the first one, and if you were looking at this in real life, or as you can see in the photograph, that's not the case. So as objects move further away from us, they don't get larger. So I made sure I painted that out. So just check your painting and see if there are errors like that in your painting, because making sure everything is right perspectively really adds to the realism of the painting. Even though we're going for impressionistic, things like this really matter. Now we're going to be filling in the shadows of the railings onto the sand. So you want some burnt umber, and a lot of burnt umber, and some raw sienna to get a really, really nice dark shade of brown. As we did with the painting of the railing itself, make sure you've used a pencil and a ruler to draw in where the shadow actually falls, so that you don't make any mistakes. I have used a palette knife here to fill in the shadows. In my first attempt of this painting, I used a brush, but I thought I'd try something different. And in fact, it came out pretty nicely because you get really nice, sharp, straight lines. So I've done all the shadow work for this painting, well, for the railing actually, using a palette knife, and it worked really nicely. If you don't want to use a palette knife, you can always use a brush. If you're comparing the painting to the photograph, you've obviously probably noticed that the colors of the sand are not an exact replica of the photograph, and that's because there's a lot of grey in the sand in the photograph, and that's not really something I wanted to paint. Although it looks warm in the photograph, I just preferred to use the warm, earthy tones of burnt umber, raw sienna, and yellow ochre, and Naples Yellow. So again, this is your painting, so you know, you can do whatever you want with it, because after all, it's your work. that's the beauty of painting. It can be anything you want it to be. All right, so now just fill in the details in the background. You know, there's a little shore in the background, so you want to fill that in with your light browns. Add any highlights to the hills. Paint in the houses. You can use different colors, whatever colors you want. Light pinks, light yellows, those are generally the colors you would use when you're painting houses in the Mediterranean. Fill in the windows, and yeah, I think that should be it for now. So for the flowers that need to be added in onto our front bush, what I've done is I've used burnt sienna, Naples Yellow and white to get a really nice light pinkish color. And using a detail brush, I've just dotted them in. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed painting along with me. I know it's not exactly for beginners, but beginner to intermediate. If you're at that stage, then you should be okay. Yeah, it's been a lot of work. It's been 2 weeks of hard graft, and I have the utmost respect for all the artists out there on YouTube who are creating tutorials on a weekly basis. I mean, it is really not easy, so respect to them. Yeah, so when this video is going to be uploaded, that is Wednesday. That's today. Today's Wednesday, right? Okay, so I'm actually heading off on vacation to Italy for a while. So hopefully I'm gonna get energized as well as get some inspiration for more paintings and hopefully more tutorials. But this is going to be the only tutorial for a while now because it was really hard work and I have to focus on other stuff at the moment. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give us a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more videos every Wednesday. And yeah, I will see you next week. Ciao!